one of my positions is a trans health navigator at AIDS Action Committee. There, I help navigate trans men and women who are out of care for whatever reason, back into care. I try to do as much HIV prevention as I can for high-risk negative people. I try to navigate high-risk negative people towards PrEP, which is a drug that has shown high favor of preventing HIV. And then with HIV positive trans people, I specifically work to get them stabilized. So whether that's housing, whether that is medical adherence, on whatever level it's going to take. If I have to break it down to the basic level as, setting up an app on their phone to remind them to take their medications, then that's what I do. More so specifically because I'm an HIV positive trans woman, although my deliverables are MSM and trans people on every spectrum, I really try to put my focus on HIV positive men and trans men and women, regardless of color. Specifically because I know that, being trans, the world discriminates against us so much more than anyone else. And it's so much harder to find stability. And obviously, if you're not taking your medications, you are at risk of, number one, passing HIV a lot easier, and number two, you're more at risk of your virus actually mutating and you reaching a point where you won't be able to take any medication and possibly dying. So, I try to do what I can for my community of HIV positive trans people to, keep them alive. That's my first and foremost goal when I go to work every day, is reaching out to my trans clients that are pos and making sure that they're receiving whatever care they need, whether it's getting food to their house from a food pantry, or, making sure that they made it to their doctor's appointment, or making sure they can get to their doctor's appointment. Like, I literally go in and check on them first before I start thinking about how I'm going to service the rest of the community. Aside from that, I run a program called the Chronic Disease Self-Management Program, which is a program open to anyone dealing with chronic illness or people that take care of people with a chronic illness. So basically, it's open for anybody to come in and sort of learn skills to sort of better manage life. And I don't really like to call it a chronic disease self-management program. I like to call it, just a self-management program, because we do invite anyone to come, and I find that, although we all come together because we all live with a chronic illness in the class, truly we find ways to separate the chronic illness from our lives and learn ways to actually just live. So I try to make sure that everyone that takes that class can really just not put their emphasis on their chronic illness, but instead find ways to work around their chronic illness to just live like everyone else. And it's a great setting because it is a peer setting. We all share different places we go, different experiences we've had, great places to work out. Sometimes we all meet up and walk around Franklin Park, or, my coworker Kevin will invite people to yoga. And, aside from the classroom setting, we do a lot of things outside of the class where we just meet and hang out. Actually, most recently, they went to mojitos and they did an event there. And so Fenway did an event there, and the class all went to mojitos and had a good time. So it's nice to see people who may normally not step out of their comfort zone take a risk. And that's one of the things I really try to push in the classes. Don't allow your disease to be the reason why you don't live. So I try to push them to, live life, have fun, and on whatever capacity that looks like. And so we find, ways to make it happen. And for those clients as well, I will go out of my way to make sure they have bus passes to get there, or, they know who their case manager is. I've called people's case managers and said, this person is struggling, they're getting ready to face homelessness, you need to get on your job. And I advocate for them because I'm someone who lives with a chronic illness, and, although my illness isn't apparent, it does affect the way I live day to day, so I know what that's like, and so I really try to make sure that those people also, have a voice and somebody who's going to actually speak up for them, because sometimes it's hard to speak up for yourself. I've experienced it, and I've also experienced somebody not being an advocate for me, or thinking that I should automatically be ready in life to advocate for myself. And at some points in my life, I just wasn't there yet. And when I might have looked for a counselor or a therapist that I was dealing with, or somebody I was going to for my substance abuse to sort of advocate for me, their just assumption was, well, you're an adult, you're supposed to be a grown woman, you're supposed to be able to figure this out, and I understand tough love sometimes, but I found, for me, who's a woman who's dealt with a dual diagnosis, that that's not always the best way to go about things, because every day's not always a good day, and 9 times out of 10, when you're in a situation where you're dealing with substance use or you have a chronic illness, most days, you're getting some type of bad news, or the world is, at that point in time, throwing a curveball at you where you wouldn't be asking for some type of help. And you don't have all the answers, because if you did, you probably would have figured it out on your own. At least in my case, I probably would have figured it out on my own. So I went to a lot of different places seeking help, and it, because they were accustomed to dealing with, people that weren't like me, they came with a, tough love mentality, and it didn't work, So I try not to perpetuate that with the people I work with. I don't baby anyone, by no means, but I definitely try to hold their hand as far as I can to get them to the other side of the street.